Do you want me to just?
Yeah,
I like that.
that way he can record it.
So you talk about how wonderful the next realm is. The beautiful colors, the great feelings, the love. Then why does anyone want to come back here? Why do you bless every day that you're here if it's really up there that's so wonderful?
I knew this question would come out. I have children here and grandchildren. And I have an opportunity to, maybe it's too late to right some wrongs I've made, but I've actually gone to people and made amends, mended fences. Whether they like it or not, I feel like I've done the right thing. I'm back, I have to accept it. And I can tell you, when I was hooked up to all these machines in intensive care, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do everything, it was horrible. But I kept going. And eventually I got better. And the rehab was horrible. But I did it. And that's the best I can answer that question.
I'll
I have a
take
purpose.
shot.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that it's very interesting that a lot of people, of course, want to stay, but it's almost like the other side is very often convincing them not to. And thoughts of love of someone left behind, children or ailing parents, the girlfriend, whatever, tend to almost suck people back into life. A lot of people argue they want to stay there, and they're told it's simply not their time. Others are given a choice. We don't know why.
Could you specifically say every day you're thankful you're here?
I am.
Because?
It's a new day. And I put myself in a position, I live on the beach. I don't have any curtains. I wake up and I look out at the ocean and I hear the sea lions, I hear the seabirds. That's where I want to be. And I'm missing that right now. But I think it's important that I talk to groups.
Okay.
So
Life is so terrible and so short. Think about it.
I'm gonna ask you to come up and speak in here so he can record them.
Yeah, actually, my question's kind of tied in with that.
Sure.
I just sort of retired, and it's funny when you stop working, because working keeps you so busy, suddenly you've got all this mental space to think, wow, I'm going to be old pretty soon, and there's not that much time left. So I've been trying to think, I've had friends say, you should make the most of this, you should make the most of this, but it sounds like you've mastered living, like you said, making the most of every day, and I would love it if you could share some tips you've learned about that. Does that mean you're more productive, or perhaps even less productive, or how does that show up for you?
I actually think I was more productive before. I was a type A personality and I could multitask. I mean, you run a city, for example, or maybe you're a watch commander like I was. You just, you're used to all these different things that are thrown at you. Right now, I walk on the beach every day. And my phone rings off the hook. This IANDS stuff it does keep me busy. I write grants. I have a good set of friends, a great network. Most of them I've changed since I became a near-death experiencer. A lot of the people I knew before I died, I can't talk to them about these things. And I don't. They'll see me on a television show and say, you didn't tell us. I didn't want to tell him. I wanted to still have a relationship with him. It's hard sometimes for people to accept a person that's gone through maybe what some of us have all gone through here, a near-death experience or a STE or whatever. But you can choose to make the best of it, or you can be miserable. I choose to make the best of it. I'm grateful you're all here tonight. Some of you, I know I'm going to hear from you because that's happened before. If I can be of assistance to you, I will. And if I can't, maybe I could help you find some way to connect with somebody that could. Or maybe you just need to talk to somebody. I'm not a psychiatrist, or I'm just an average white man. That's it. But
Questions?
Frank. Yeah, you have to come up here. I would like it to be recorded. So
I'm just curious how one can actually join
Hold on.
IANDS.
okay, go ahead and ask me.
Yeah, I'm just curious about how one would go about actually joining the IANDS organization.
All you have to do is to get on the internet, the IANDS, IANDS website. You can click right on there, and it has all the events, all the people that are involved, library type information, upcoming events. It's all there. So, who else has a question? Whoever wants to. We're going to stay till your questions are answered.
You said how you were totally different from how you were before, and I'm curious about what changes have been, since then. And one specific thing I'm curious about is like any prejudices or biases that you had before that you don't have now, that kind of thing.
That's a question that I can answer this way, because I think I started to evolve before I had my NDE. When I was a policeman, I had a friend who owned a liquor store in Santa Cruz. And on my days off, I would work the liquor store. I'm a type of person that keeps busy all the time, especially when I was younger. And it gave me something to do. And it ended up being one of the best things I've ever done, because when you're a policeman, you get a negative connotation towards people. You become calloused. I'm going to give you an example. A guy came in that probably was a construction worker or a logger, and my family, we had a construction company. So to me, they're good people. Some of the best people I've known have been in that line of work. But this guy came in and he was all dirty and filthy, and everybody just kind of backed away from him as he got up to the counter. And I looked at him and I thought, he's making a mess of the counter, because he had mud and all this stuff on him. And he had a 6-pack of beer. We exchanged the money. I gave it to him, put it in a bag, gave it to him, and he stopped. And I thought, he goes, "You gave me back too much change." And all of a sudden I realized I had formulated an opinion of him that I did not want to. That actually was one of the best life lessons working that job, where people would come in the liquor store to have their tickets signed off, because there were 4 of us that worked there, 4 policemen that worked there part-time, and the owner didn't care, as long as he knew he wouldn't get held up. So, and it was fun, because Christmas I would put a Santa Claus costume on, and I'd work behind the counter as Santa Claus, and it gave me a whole different perspective on life. And so I started to evolve before that. And right now, I'm probably, I wouldn't say I'm as happy as I've ever been, because it would be nice to have a relationship. And I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you in this room have sleep issues? Raise your hand. NDEers have sleep issues.
What does issues mean?
If I go to bed before midnight, it's a miracle.
Oh, really?
And if I don't wake up around 2 o'clock and I'm up for a couple hours, it's the norm. And I go back, and I know so many people that are NDEers that have that problem. And Yvonne Cason, I keep bringing her name up, she kind of has done studies on that, and that's one thing that seems to go along with the NDEers or the STEers, is sleep issues. And I just learned to live with them.
Okay. Second question.
Okay.
Did you notice in your near-death experience whether or not you had any reincarnations or any people in your current lifetime that you may have associated with a past soul group?
Yes. And I can tell you, I grew up in an Irish Catholic household. My mom was Catholic. I didn't want to think like that, but yeah, I do now. Good question. I'm going to give you another thing that I believe in. My near-death experience. I saw myself laying a flare pattern at an accident scene on the Coast Highway in Santa Cruz. And I saw a big rig coming, and I put the flare pattern down, and I did not know that the trailer was not lighted. The truck goes by, I start to step forward. Something prevented me from going any further. That's all I'm going to say. It was eye-opening. I still have, that's just one example. Think about your sixth sense. And probably less than a year ago, I was on the Coast Highway driving from Florence, Oregon to Newport, Oregon. I was about ready to come into a curve, and I thought to myself, I got to pull over. I pulled over, and here comes a logging truck on the wrong side of the road.
Whoa.
Listen to your sixth sense. I listen to my gut feelings now. And I don't know, I think everybody here can probably relate to that, where you kind of suspect something's going to happen, and you're not sure. Go with your gut instinct. It's important. Questions? Anybody else? Are you all done? Here comes one.
What was it about George Harrison you were trying to tell us? And then also, did you learn anything about the meaning of life from your near-death experience?
Two questions. The George Harrison situation was a YouTube video that I saw. It's the last interview of George Harrison, or George Harrison's last interview, something like that. He's got Rabbi Shankar with him during the interview, so they'll tell you, they'll key you to it. For me, I've watched it several times. I even watched it last night. I watch it a lot. I always watch the first 5 or 6 minutes. That's all I need to see. It reinforces something in me. And there's another spiritual thing that I'm going through right now that I'm not going to delve into or whatever, but it's been something that's evolved, that I've evolved in. What was your second question?
Meaning of life.
Lifeless.
Was anything imparted to you in your NDE about about the meaning of life or something like that?
I am actually, the meaning of life to me is something that I do believe we're here for purpose or for a reason. And I'm here talking to you for a reason. So, somebody here needs to hear what I'm saying, I think, probably. And in a way, I need to hear what you say too. Gets me thinking about things. But spiritually, the meaning of life is something that's still evolving in me. And it's happened as a result of these talks and some of the places, some of the venues where I've talked. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But it's kind of exciting. It puts you at peace. Somebody else had okay. I think you had one in the back too, didn't you? Yeah.
I was here the last time you spoke, and I think at that talk, which was one of your first talks, you emphasized much more how much you had changed since the NDE because of what you learned from your NDE.
Yes.
I think it would benefit the folks here to hear more about the specifics of what it is that you learned from going through your life review. You've touched upon that a few times, but even your children have said that they like you better now.
They do.
So what did you see in your life review that made you pause and reconsider your life and to come back and to redo your life with a new perspective?
I think I might have covered a little bit of this. My perspective on life itself is not the same that it used to be. It's so precious. When you see the effect you have on people in your life review, how they think about you, what they would really like to tell you, how you present yourself, it's a real eye-opener. And it almost goes back to, do you want to be treated yourself the same way you've treated somebody else? The ones that I had probably the most difficulty dealing with, I mentioned, were betrayal. A couple had to do with betrayal on the job. People that you thought were your friends or your colleagues, they really weren't. A lot of them wanted to advance or go over you or whatever, and it was just almost like jealousy. And I've learned to let all that go. Anything that happens to me now from my life review, I think, what good does it do? What good does worry do? As long as the sun goes down in the evening and it rises in the morning, you got a new day. So you got to make the most of it. Yeah, you have to deal with issues, but I just find myself being better able to cope with things. I just don't let things bother me like they did, and I've eliminated a lot of things. Just this last week, I mean, I have accumulated things my whole life, mostly classic cars. I have a problem with that. But I've gotten rid of a 65 Plymouth, which I got in high school,
Yes, I know.
that red one. I got rid of my 66 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible that I've had all these years.
Congratulations. Oh, really?
Couple of trucks. I had a ranch. I got rid of all my ranch equipment. Some of the stuff I just gave away to people that couldn't afford it. There was a rancher that, actually a young couple that had like a a couple of steers, and I was talking to them, and they were talking about, oh, we got to go find a water trough, and we can't afford it. So I said, I got a couple water troughs. I gave them the water troughs. What good does it do to keep all that stuff? And I mean, I've got stuff like you wouldn't believe. I've collected it my whole, when I traveled internationally, I would buy stuff, like maybe I was in Barbados or maybe I was somewhere else, ship it home, UPS, it's still in the boxes. I've never opened them.
That's double A for sure.
That's me. And so that's what I've learned. I've learned to just let go. And I've learned to be considerate of other people to the point where I worry about it. I really can't spend the whole night talking about this, but I'm hoping you get the gist of it. And I hope what I said may be something that may benefit you at some point or time. That was a great question, though. Thank you.
I was just wondering about the sense of the divinity that you saw when you were in your near-death experience. There was a sense of the powers above, the power that bees, and what you felt about that. Just elaborate a little more about being when you were in that state. Yeah.
It still bothers me. It bothers me to the point where I think about it sometimes. I obsess about it. Part of me wishes I had looked, but I couldn't. It was very humbling. And I wasn't prepared. I don't know if you can be prepared for what you see. And one of the things that bothers me is I may have to go through this again. I don't know if you start from the time you first died and you get to go from that, or if you just got, I don't know. But I think the last 10 years I've been a total different person. So I feel good about that, but I don't know how else to answer that. It's humbling. I thought I saw another hand go up.
Robert, as the Vice President of IANDS, I have to ask you, why do you believe there is so much conditional resistance to people exploring near-death experiences? And why is there such an increase with the allure to atheism, from your viewpoint?
Resistance to IANDS.
It's the same thing. Many of us have talked about, why are there not more people here? This is really healthy information. There is no dogma here. You feel good coming here. And there's more people go to church. And I don't think religion doesn't want this information out, science doesn't want this information out. So how do you get beyond that to get this good information out that can be very comforting and healthy for people to hear?
I'm going to give you an example that I think might be an eye-opener, because I've seen some changes myself. When I was on that show, I Survived Beyond and Back, I didn't actually know it had aired when it did. Two things happened. I was driving on my way to Phoenix to drop off a car for my son. Went down the I-5 corridor, and I pulled in a truck stop to get gas. And I had to use the restroom too, so I got the gas and I went into the restroom, and I walked by this room that had a whole bunch of guys in it. They looked like truck drivers. And when I walked by, I saw some people look at me, and I went into the restroom, and I'm at a urinal. And a guy comes up to me and he goes, "You're the guy that was on this TV show." And I thought, here I am, talk about being vulnerable. And And I said, well, that's the rumor. And he goes, well, a bunch of us are here. We saw you walk by. Could you stop by and talk to us? I didn't know that show had aired.
Wow.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I walked into this place, and here's all these truck drivers. They watched cable TV. It was like all they wanted to do was talk about seeing my dog and all the other stuff like that. So I took some time, probably spent a half an hour with them. And then I thought, boy, that show, I can't believe that happened. Well, I went to Los Angeles, and there was one In-N-Out burger place I used to go to all the time when I was working down there. And I thought, oh, that sounds so good, because in Oregon we didn't have them. And so I'm going by there, and I thought, I'm going to go in there. So I know my cardiologist would kill me, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I go into this In-N-Out burger. It's right off Interstate 10. And I saw a couple of police cars there. That wasn't unusual. We all ate there. I go in. I'm standing in line. And this nice female officer came up to me, and she goes, "You're the patrolman that's on the TV show." This is the same day.
No way.
Yes.
Whoa.
And I said, yeah, I guess I said it must have aired. And she goes, yeah, she said, would you like to join us?
Oh, wow.
So I said, sure. So I got my order, sat down and talked to them. And I think how NDEs are starting to come forward, probably because of cable television, groups like this, people that have experienced and come back to life. And let's face it, the medical technology is probably going to help increase more people to come back and talk about these things. I'm an example of it. I think it's just starting to build. And IANDS is getting interest from Iran,
Whoa.
China, places all over. People are starting, because these television shows have been syndicated worldwide, like the one I was on. And people are, they're on the internet, they're starting to research and look for things. And I think probably that has a big bearing on what is happening. And for the truck drivers, for example, they're on the road.
Yeah.
So
Time.
Sunday they all get together and they were talking about this. So I don't know if that answered your question. That's the best I can answer it. As far as the atheist, I don't know what to say about that. I was in front of a higher power. I was. That's all I need to say. I can't say anything other than that. It's up to people whether they want to believe it or not. We all have our ability to believe what we want to believe and what we don't want to believe. But I know what I experienced, so it's the best I can answer it.
Folks, we've run out of time.
Thank you.